So, chapter 4. Here we go. In chapter 4, we're going to start talking about adjustments for AGI. Remember, those are those special deductions that do affect the amount for AGI, right? So these are all of those deductions that are, well, I don't have it up here. Maybe I can, there might be a picture of the tax form up here in one of these pages. We're going to be going through one by one to look at the different types of, the major types of adjustments for AGI. Okay, now there are other type adjustments for AGI, but these are the major ones that we're going to look at. So student loan interest, that's always usually the one that students are kind of most interested in. That student loan interest will, can be a deduction against adjusted gross income, which ultimately lowers your taxable income. Health savings accounts. So I don't know if we covered health savings accounts a little bit in payroll accounting. We talked about them from the perspective of employees that contribute to health savings accounts. So there is a deduction, a 4AGI deduction for contributions to health savings accounts that we're going to go through as well. Military moving expenses. Now, it is specifically military. It used to be that there was a moving expense deduction for everybody as long as they met certain requirements for distance that they moved and it had to be job related. That does not exist anymore. Now it is only for members of the military. Okay. Self-employment taxes. So 1/2 of self-employment taxes. You remember in payroll accounting we talked about self-employment taxes. Those are the Social Security and Medicare taxes that are paid by self-employed individuals. Those individuals get a deduction for 1/2 of those taxes that are paid. Essentially, the amount that would have been paid by an employer, and the employer would have gotten to deduct them on their tax return had that person been employed. But there is this deduction for 1/2 of the self-employment taxes that are paid. Self-employed health insurance deduction. So we're using the word self-employed twice here. Once for the self-employment taxes and once for health insurance. So these only pertain to individuals who have self-employment income. And we're going to go through the different, there are also other restrictions on who can use those and the amount that they can take, which we'll go through, but they do only pertain to individuals with self-employment income. So if somebody's just an employee, I don't say just an employee, but that's their only income as an employee, they would not be eligible for either of those deductions. Penalty on early withdrawal of savings. We'll go through this. You may have noticed on the 1099 INT form, the interest form, that there is a box for early withdrawal penalties. We'll go through what exactly that means, but that is another one of those deductions. Alimony. Under certain circumstances, alimony is deductible. Most circumstances these days it's not, because the rules changed and they have grandfathered in some of those old rules, but for the most part, most alimony, you get familiar with what alimony is. A couple gets divorced, one couple has to pay the other. This is not child support. Child support is specifically for children. Alimony is to pay the other spouse a certain amount. And the alimony may or may not be deductible depending upon when the divorce was finalized. And then educator expenses as well. Deduction for educator expenses, not for me, but for K-12 educators, there is a deduction, very small deduction, it's not a whole lot, for K-12 teachers who spend their own money on school supplies, which happens all the time, right? We do that all the time. So, okay, so the up or down is really nice, but I can't do side to side. I mean, I can do side to side here, but I can't turn the page because I can't reach up there. So I question why they even put this stuff in here, the old rules, but just as an FYI, so there used to be deduction, and this was a below the line I'm going to talk about above the line, below the line as well. By the way, you probably, if you've read the chapter, you may have seen that terminology. There was they call it below the line deduction for charitable contributions up to $600 for married filing jointly, $300 for single individuals. It no longer applies. That was kind of a COVID piece to encourage people to contribute to charities during COVID. So they have eliminated that. All right. Any questions before we get started here? I'm gonna flip the page. Okay. So let's start out actually talking a little bit. Oh, good. My mouse worked. I'd like to see a 1040, but I'll pull one up after a bit. So let's talk a little bit about this whole concept of above the line and below the line. So we've got, if you remember the 1040, we've got our 1040 here. We've got income, and we've got then our total income, and then we've got these adjustments to income, which is what we're talking about here. And these are subtractions from income to arrive at our adjusted gross income. And then we've got other deductions. And this could be the standard deduction or itemized. We're going to talk about itemized in the next chapter. To get to our taxable income. And then this is the last line on the tax form, right? That taxable income. The ones that we're talking about today is this. This is chapter 4. These adjustments to income. Now you'll see, I mean, they're deductions. They're deducted from income. They're called adjustments because they affect adjusted gross income. So we're using that same terminology. But you see, we've got two classifications of deductions. We've got these adjustments up here before adjusted gross income, and then we've got these deductions down here that come after adjusted gross income. Your book calls these adjustments, deductions for, how do they phrase it here? For AGI deductions. These are the 4 AGI deductions. These are the from AGI deductions. Yes. You can remember the 4 AGI by thinking about the fact that they are before AGI. They come before AGI. And being able to visualize that 1040 is really helpful. Now remember, we talked about the fact that adjusted gross income affects a lot of other items on the tax return, right? It affects how much we pay in, we've already looked at how much we pay in Social Security, how much of our Social Security benefits are taxable, has an effect on that, has an effect on a lot of things elsewhere on the tax return. So anything that we can do to reduce this amount is going to have a positive tax effect elsewhere on the tax return as well. So these are kind of special deductions because they do reduce our AGI. These deductions, although they're valuable, they don't do anything to AGI. They don't have any effect on our adjusted gross income, so therefore these deductions aren't going to affect our child tax credit amount, our dependent care expense or dependent care credit amount. It's not going to do anything to affect our taxable Social Security benefits. It has no effect on that. But these ones here, the 4 AGI deductions, do have an effect. Now, your book also uses this terminology of above the line and below the line. Essentially, this is the line. The line is AGI. So, above the line deductions are those adjustments to income that come before. Below the line deductions are those that come after AGI. Okay, so above the line deductions can be more valuable because, like I said, it's also going to affect other credits and deductions elsewhere on the tax return. Right? What else do I want to say about that? Any questions? So just remember, for AGI, B4. I know that's not spelled right. They're meaning at the end, but you know. And then the others are from AGI. So those are the guys we're going to talk about today. This is, and you'll see, you've probably printed out, like on your Tax Act assignments, you would have printed out Schedule 1. Schedule 1 has two parts to it. The first part is other income. The second part is adjustments to income. So that's what we're looking at here. Now you can see there's a lot of them. We're going through the major ones, the ones that are used the most frequently. And we're not going through in the order that they're actually on this form, by the way. It'd be kind of nice if they put it in that order, but they don't. Educator expenses, we're going to look at educator expenses. Line 11. We're not going to look at business expenses of reservists, so that would be military reservists. Health savings account deduction. On line, oh shoot, come back. Oh, now I can't reach. Okay. Yeah, I need a, or a ladder. I'll try not to touch it again. Except on to scroll it. Okay, so line 13 is our health savings account deduction. Another thing we're going to look at. Moving expense for members of the armed forces, 14. Deductible part of self-employment tax. That is the 1/2 of self-employment tax. So they're talking about the deductible part, which is half of it. We would calculate the actual self-employment tax in a different place, and then half of that we're going to take as a deduction, as a for AGI deduction or adjustment. Let's see. Self-employed, simple, and qualified plans, we don't talk about those specifically. In this class, there is actually a chapter about retirement plans in your book. We don't cover it though because we've got so many other things to cover. I had to kind of pick and choose what are we not gonna look at. That was one of them, but these are retirement plans. Amounts that would be, that the individual contributes to outside of their employment. So if they make their own contribution, separate from any employment that they may have. We will look at the self-employed health insurance deduction. It's on there. Penalty on early withdrawal of savings. Alimony. IRA deduction. This is another type of retirement plan that individuals can contribute to. We're also not looking at that, but if you're interested, it's in chapter, I can't remember which chapter it's in. 13? Something like that. Anyway, it might be 11. I think it's an odd number. But we're not going to look at that one. Student loan interest deduction, we are going to look at that. So again, that's not payments for student loans, it's the interest on the payments for student loans. And then the rest of it is just kind of miscellaneous, all sorts of different ones. But these are all deductions, adjustments that affect adjusted gross income. So we're going to take them in order here, not in order of the 1040, but in order of how they got them listed in the book. All right, starting with student loan interest. Take a break here on this.